Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. And I would say we have an action-packed show, but I really don't even know. The main thing I want to talk about off the top was the Guardian caps, because I started to see them pop up a little bit. I don't think I mentioned it last week, where two would come back and they're like, yo, he might need one. We talked about the Olave hit. And then I saw that one of the Colts players had been wearing one.
Hold on. You just said he might need one. He has like 47 concussions. I think you can start with he needs one.
No, he needs to retire.
He sneezes the wrong way and is getting a concussion.
A Guardian cap's not going to help him. Do you think so?
Well, it can't hurt.
I forget what game I was watching, and they were like, they showed replay 3 times of a guy getting hit, and they were like, it's clean. Look at the hit to the chest. Why is the guy knocked out? And then you see, like, then they played like a little bit after, and you saw like the whiplash of his head cracking off the ground. And the other guy's like, maybe it's when he hit his head off the ground. And they're like, yeah, maybe that is it. We've been watching the wrong part of the replay. And I'm like, yeah, that's what happens to Tua. Wearing a padding on your head isn't going to stop your neck from like whiplashing back into the ground if you're getting crushed. And like the way Tua flails around, I feel like it's kind of just like one of those dolls, like a rag doll that you can kind of throw around. Like if you see like a kid or a dog even doing like a chew toy, and things just ripping around his head, then smashes off the ground. A Guardian cap's not going to help that. It might reduce the impact from like a helmet to helmet, but I'd be hard pressed. And I don't have any signs to back this up, but if I had one of those on and you whip me back, like pull my arms back or something, and I fell right back and hit my head, I don't think that would help me. I think I would be dazed and probably have a concussion. I feel like I've had so many concussions undiagnosed that if I hit my head, I feel like a concussion's coming on no matter what. Maybe that's only me, but I feel like that has to be other people feel like that.
Yeah.
Not like, I'm telling you, like if I hit the back of my head, I'll probably be dazed. Like if someone punches me by accident, like that's not gonna, like you get hit in the face and you're kind of like stunned, but like it's not the same type of hit, I think, is whenever you're falling back and cracking the back of your head. I try to feel it. Like I don't think it's soft back there. Right?
Yeah. I just think just the impact of it should be enough to.
He needs a neck thing. No one talks about those, like the horse collar. Is that what those are called?
Yeah.
Because I know that's what they call it when you tackle them, so I don't know if that's the actual name. But people, like if you watch an 80s movie, you see the linebackers wearing them because they're like, oh yeah, my head's going to whip around when I crush this guy.
Oh, cowboy collars.
Cowboy collar, yeah, is that what they are? He's like, yeah. I'm going to wear that. That's what Tua needs. Is it going to restrict his head turning side to side? Not really, I don't think. But is it going to restrict his head flailing back? Yeah. That's the whole point of them. I'm surprised more people don't wear them. Because they didn't update them. That's the problem. In the 80s, they looked cool because like you had the big pads. Now the pads have slimmed down. They need like a cool Star Wars type version of it or something. Right?
Well, I mean, honestly, the one thing that is missing is everyone's not wearing a mouthpiece anymore. Like it's more of a fashion trend of just having it hang off your face mask and not actually wearing it. Like I think that's part of the issue too, is that you have all these quarterbacks and stuff that aren't wearing a mouthpiece, and then that has shown with some of the impacts that it helps reduce concussions. They're just not wearing mouthpieces.
Bro, I saw, was it Sanders still against the Steelers? He pulled a hit. His mouthpiece is flailing. And then when he got off the ground, he pulled out another mouthpiece. And I thought, he has 2 of them?
Yes, that's the...
Why?
Because there's one for show and one that you wear.
It's like a distraction. I mean, he's on defense. So maybe the guy, like... And he's not going to like grab it and it looks like a face mask, right? Because it was like the black one flailing around. But then he actually had a mouthpiece because I thought, oh, good Lord, my boy's going to get hurt out there not wearing his mouthpiece. And then I was like, no, he does have one. Interesting. There's like his backup one. He gets rocked and it goes flying on the field. And he's like, I got another one here.
Well, that was like we had a JV game, and I about came unglued on a kid because I thought he didn't have his mouthpiece, and he goes, "Nah, coach, it's my swag mouthpiece," and he pulled out his real one.
I know they have the ones with designs and all kind of things on them that are over the top. That, yeah, I guess you just keep in your face mask. That's what they call them, a swag one.
I guess.
I guess I'm getting too old. I wouldn't even care. Like, what is that? Supposed to be like a pickup thing? Like, yeah, hey girl, do you see that swag piece I had? Nah, you're 50 yards away from me. How the hell am I supposed to see that from the stands? What are you talking about? Right? If it's on TV, maybe. But in high school, no one's seen that piece. I watched or not the Max Prep. I watched the Huddle film. What that's on Max Prep, bro. You can't even barely see which player it is. They have to freeze it and then they circle them, like when you're looking at recruiting tape. It's like grainy footage. Like JFK's assassination was better filmed than some of the high school films out there.
And you're not lying.
I know I'll get banned for that comment. I'm like, some of the time people were like, hey, you got to see this kid. And I'm like, I can't watch that. What is this, from 1999? Like, come on, bro. There's hundreds of kids with iPhones in that stadium. They can't have one footage. I know it's at night. A lot of them, the darkness, I guess, really is bad. But I thought a lot of phones now take decent video at night. But they're probably like, we only had it in the budget in 1985 to buy one camera. We're still using it.
I'm not risky enough to do this on my own, but I wondered, like, if you just filmed your game off of an iPhone, like, what would the quality be?
Obviously enough to get an NCAA investigation. Right?
Fair enough.
Wasn't that like the whole thing? People with iPhones out there filming the game. I mean, from high school, so the iPhone, depending on how it's a lot of people filming it, but you can get those like handheld, I guess not even handheld, but like a tripod that has the swivel hand that if you set up the angle, all you would have to do is just turn it a little bit and it's supposed to be smooth enough. I think the iPhone even has, or any phone has like smoothing anyway. So that it would be pretty easy for someone to kind of just keep it on and film. Now, you might run out of space. That would probably be the biggest issue. But if the school was like, hey, we're taking donations, I guarantee someone in the district paid the top dollar to get the biggest iPhone with the most space, and they could donate it when they upgrade it. And you'd probably have enough. The dark, it being at night, and like if the stadium's at night, that's going to be the biggest issue because it's going to be low light. But the stadiums have enough light that I don't think that would be as big an issue as I'm thinking. I should take a gander and try it out. But it's getting cold out here, down here, for me to go and film someone's high school game and pretend to not be Connor Stallions out there. Like
be getting banned from high school games.
It's like, I'll just put it up on Facebook Marketplace. Like, hey, great footage. You can buy it for me for $1,000. But I don't think they're gonna buy it like from high school. But if I just went to like a couple random college games and like just filmed the signs, like what would happen? It's not illegal for them to do it, right? That was the whole thing. It's not illegal. It's illegal for him to coordinate it, which is what they were trying to coordinate with his Venmo or whatever, and they couldn't really pin it on him. But if he didn't have proof that he was doing it, if I went out myself, filmed it, and then sold it on like Twitter or something, the NCAA wouldn't be mad.
I'm pretty sure somebody's going to be pissed.
Yeah, whoever I'm filming. That's how you get hype out. Because it depends.
That's also how you get shot.
You have to find out who's a bit like Ryan Day. He's a crybaby, so he's crying about it. So if you're filming Ohio State, of course you're gonna get so many hits. Teams are gonna be interested because they are gonna say if he's so upset, then it has to be worth it. We'll pay your fee, cameraman, right? Like if I went and filmed the team and they were like, yeah, good one, dog. We don't care. No one's gonna buy it because they're gonna say, well, it's probably worthless. Unless you're like, you fell for that? You try to like really trick them? Maybe, but like they said, even with the helmet cams, you're still seeing team signal because like there's not enough time on the clock for them to call the plays in. But I don't know. I feel like that type of change at college isn't going to be as big. If everyone starts wearing Guardian caps, it's going to be a huge shift, right? It's kind of like watching Randy Moss highlights and you're like, whoa, this looks bad. When did they film this? And then like newer highlights, you're in 4K. Because like I joke, it's like you're watching Miami Hurricanes. They have no highlights in the modern day. Even like Notre Dame hasn't won a bowl, like a big time bowl game since like low definition, like 720p. Like when it was before TV started to do widescreen. That's when Notre Dame's like last big time win was. And so now they're like, they're going to be in the playoffs, man. Did you see them kill Florida State? I'm like, dude, I've seen this story before. They have no highlights. If you watch highlights, they're not going to be in quality that you find appealing on YouTube. You're like watching grainy footage and you're like, huh, football used to be like this? That's what the Guardian caps are going to be like. They'll say like, oh, the so-and-so team hasn't been good since everyone started wearing Guardian caps. But I don't know if it's going to replace, because I feel like, I don't know if you can replace like the actual helmet part and just wear the cap. That's kind of going back to like the leather helmets, but they would just be cushiony helmets. Would that take out a lot of the hits? Because I feel like the face mask, people lead with the face mask. If you turn it into like a plexiglass type hockey helmet and you're leading and it kind of bends into your nose, are you going to lead with your helmet? Maybe. You're wearing like a balloon on your head and you're running into someone. Will you start to lift your head up? I don't know. Because players are still doing it. And I watch every game I feel like I watch on the weekend, someone's getting close to being ejected for putting their head down. And it's so easy not to do. But some players just keep doing it because they were like taught that or whatever. It'll probably take another decade for it to get out of the game. If high school's even teaching it. High school seems to have weird coaching things going on, so I don't know. But that's kind of my NFL update. Right, not really too much this week that I saw that I really wanted to talk about. Was there anything that stood out to you?
From college?
Nah, from NFL.
From the NFL, I mean, the Steelers. I mean, what the heck? They're actually playing like a normal team now.
But is Washington any good?
They appear to be.
Do you think Harbaugh wished that he went to Washington instead of the Chargers?
I don't think.
Because the Washington, they're in the NFC, and I keep saying that Harbaugh made an awful decision because now he's not even going to get to the Super Bowl because they're going to have to play the Chiefs twice a year and then in the playoffs most likely if they even get that far. And in the NFC, who are you going to play? Lions? Are they for real? We don't know. Like they kind of look decent. They're down. They come back and win by a field goal. Is that impressive? I don't know. Vikings have been inconsistent. The Eagles have been here or there. Saquon Barkley's been going off. You see him jump over that dude. Was that this week or last week? I think it was last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I feel like that's just an easier path. Washington's right there. They're already 7-3. Their playoff chances has to be really good. Because you would think that they're 3 more games they win and they're in for sure? With like 10 to go or 7 to go or whatever. I don't even know how many more are left. They played 10. Is it 18 now? 19? I never know. I get confused because they add them and then they not talk about it. I know it's not Thanksgiving week yet. Thanksgiving feels like it's late this year because it's like right at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And so with that, that's usually where I think you'll kind of know which teams are going to most likely make the playoffs or kind of clinch it, unless they like epically choke. Like the Chiefs right now, they already have 9 wins. If they get to 10, that's pretty much a lock, I would think. Chargers have 6. The Washington has 7. So they're 1 behind, Harbaugh is. But Harbaugh's won 3 in a row. And then the Steelers are 7-2. So the Steelers are only, 3 more wins to be locked in too. And then we haven't even seen the downside of Russ. How many games he been in? 4?
Yeah.
So I said he usually takes 5 or 6 and then he's downhill. They play the Ravens though. You think the Steelers can beat the Ravens?
The way they're playing right now, yeah.
Well, not scoring, low scoring games.
Well, the Ravens secondary just gave up a bazillion points to Joe Burrow and Chase. So, yeah, it's doable.
I do wonder that with the Bengals, like, can they get back into it? They're 4-6 right now. They had been hyped up. Chase had so many touchdowns. That was ridiculous. I played him in fantasy. I didn't even care the rest of the weekend. I thought, there's no way I'm catching up. And it was insane because I didn't realize I was playing him, and I thought, man, this guy's having a really good game. And then I looked and I thought, are you kidding me? Of course that's who I'm up against. I'm going to be out. Nico Collins, like I took a gamble because they were like, Nico might play. I'm like, I have to try to play him. Of course he didn't play, so I got 0 points for him on like the Sunday Nighter. But I thought the only way I can have a chance is if he goes off for like 5 touchdowns. But even then I wouldn't even have been close, I don't think. Because quarterbacks are bad for me. My whole team's falling apart. But I had a lucky run.
Even ESPN was like, wow, that's bad.
Yeah, so I don't know how much that could have just been a fluke for them. So I don't know. I still don't know what the pecking order is for those middle tier AFC teams. Because like I could very well see the Bengals making a run and like just being better than the Chargers. Or like Denver had been making a run, they lose 2 in a row, and now they're back down there at their 5-5. And because I had thought at the beginning of the year, there's no way the Broncos even make the playoffs. Nix comes in, he starts playing decent, but now he's seeing the rookie fall off. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended 6-17 or 6 and whatever it would be 11, 8, 12. Where they're like, yeah, they really caught on to him. That's how rookies go. But Jay Daniels has to be thinking the same thing. The only rookie that didn't have fall off had to be what, Big Ben?
Yeah, but I mean,
100 years ago.
When you look at what he did, he didn't start day one. Like he started midway through that season.
Yeah, but he never had the fall off.
No.
I mean, they weren't really relying on him. They had Bettis.
And a top 5 defense.
Yeah. Well, but Broncos don't have that.
No, they do not.
Neither does Washington. I don't even know if Washington has a top offense. You're just like winning on Hail Marys and things, which isn't sustainable. But long term, you have to think. You have to be. I feel more excited about their future than I would about the Chargers with Harbaugh. I mean, Harbaugh's a great coach. Don't get me wrong, but
I feel like with the Chargers, that's going to be a longer build till Harbaugh gets more of his guys in, and like I feel like his is built with a longer, like there's more to his programming to like get the right people in, buy into his system, and it just takes time. Like he's not going to come in and immediately flip them around into like look how long it took for him to get everything going with Michigan. Like he was borderline getting himself run out till he got it straightened out.
I think with the Niners it took 3 years. I feel like the NFL you have to turn it around faster. I mean, honestly, with Michigan, he had a chance in 2016 if the refs didn't steal that game. That'd have been 2 years. That game had a lot of fallout against Ohio State. If you were in an expanded playoff, he would have had Michigan back that first year. They would have had a great chance to be in that playoff. I mean, heck, we'll talk about playoffs in a little bit, but like, look at the SEC complaining about their like 2 and 3 loss teams not being ranked high. It's like, good grief, Harbaugh had that record every year, basically. Now, with this right here with Herbert, I was thinking Herbert was older than what he was, but he is 26. So he's not like super young. And so that's where it's like his stats are pretty good this year. He only has 1 interception, but that's Harbaugh ball, where they're like, we're going to hold on to our guy. And he was hurt for a little bit too. But I'm just thinking like, man, it's going to take a while for him to turn it around. And you just have to play Mahomes. Like, the legacy is going to be a much harder sell whenever you're like, hey, what do we got in our future? It's like, oh yeah, we got to play Mahomes. Did you make a NFC or AFC championship game? Nah, we keep losing in the divisional round. Then, hey, we're in the NFC, we're in the Super Bowl every year. All we have to do is get lucky. Like, the 49ers make it almost every year, or it seems like. How many times they lose? 2? 3? At least 2.
Yeah, at least 2.
So, and then going back with Harbaugh, they've lost it 3 times in like the past decade. When was that Harbaugh one? 2013? Maybe it's one more extra year. But that's like the difference. Where in the AFC, they had Tom Brady being there a bunch of times, and then there weren't a lot of other teams breaking through. And now with the Chiefs, I feel like it's going to be just that much harder. Where people could say like, hey, if the AFC, if they beat the Chiefs, they're going to win the Super Bowl, but it hasn't always been like that. Giants were getting random Super Bowls. Eagles got one. So NFC teams have pulled through and won the Super Bowl. That's where I thought Harbaugh would have made his move. Didn't have to play his brother. Now he's played his brother. Not even like the Steelers, like with Tomlin. Like, it has to be tough for him.
Yeah, but I feel like with him winning having the national championship under his belt, that's almost, he's playing with house money. It's like, yeah, go to a place where the weather's nice. Just if they fire you in a couple years, so what? Like, I think it's a laid back approach.
I think that he talks about the competition with his brother. I think he wants to one up him. He seems to be super competitive, right? He wins the Super Bowl. His brother can't really top that. He has a national championship and a Super Bowl. There's only a handful of guys that have that. So, unless John Harbaugh does come back to Michigan and win one, he could have won up Jim before. Maybe he should do that next year. That'd be cool. I should tweet him, see if he's interested in that.
He'd hire Sonner Callions
Yeah.
to help with his recruiting.
Bro, you already have the system your brother built. Could you imagine if like your brother's like, hey, I know you have a Super Bowl. I have a national championship. I'll come up to the NFL. I'm going to win a Super Bowl, and then we'll both have one. And he's like, yeah, but you talk about the national championship. I don't have one of those. He's like, yeah, I know. I'll be one better. And then you're like, I'm going to get the jump on you, buddy. You're not going to win the Super Bowl, but I'm going to go back and win the national championship too. And I think that would eat at you more, right?
That would definitely be a nagging thing.
Because like you're like, damn it, I can't even win the Super Bowl, and he went and won the national championship just to spite me with the same team. Like, it wouldn't even be, because it'd be kind of easy to transition in with NIL, to just kind of go in and be like, hey, he's great with like Lamar on offense or whatever. He's good with defense. You can win in college with just that. And he's personable enough, and the media loves him compared to Jim. They hate him for some reason. Where they seem to like John.
Just out there eating steaks.
Yeah, he's like, the good brother's here now. And then everyone would just be like pumping up recruiting for him. Like that, I think that would kill Jim, wouldn't it? He'd only have to win one and then jump back to the NFL. Like if the Ravens cut him and he said, Matt, I'll try college for a couple of years. And if he would win like national championship within 3 years or so. Because with NIL, you could turn it around in a year or two. Look at what the Ducks did with Dylan Gabriel, right? They bring him in. He's like the NCAA like touchdown passing leader or something. And I'm like, how many years has this guy been playing? I never even remember him. Like, what? And then Next thing you know, Oregon's ranked number 1, and they have all the NIL stuff going. If John wanted to win a Super Bowl or a national championship, despite Jim, if the Ravens were crazy enough and let him go, what do you know? That's like a little vacation, right? Because in college, you can just be the head guy like Nick Saban, and you're just doing Aflac commercials, doing whatever, and then you delegate to your assistants. John seems like he does a good job of delegating. I think he'd be a great college coach. I mean, look at your boy Dion. Is he coming home?
That's a big negative.
You say that now.
I mean, well, I'll say this: I'll be shocked if he does, because I think what will end up happening. We saw over the weekend that the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, and wide receivers coach have all been canned at Florida State, and I feel like there's more to go. It's just a matter of how many and how soon. It seems like there's potential that there's guys being in contact already, that he has who he wants lined up, and just waiting for the rest of the season.
So, whenever they're cutting guys mid-season, because people have been arguing with this, do you think that's going to give your team a spark?
If for nothing else, it shows that he's willing to part with these guys. And some of them have been on staff the entire time that he's been here. The thing that surprises me at this point is how much of a fall off there was. Like, it's not like something minor. And I knew there was going to be a little bit of lag, but Norvell's done such a great job evaluating players in the portal and hitting on the guys that he wants, that it was like he was getting a pass because he was making it work, you know? And with this cycle, I mean, I don't know if it's just the hangover from the playoff snub. I don't know if it's, just the expectations of NIL. I don't know. But for what they're paying certain players, they're not getting the return on the investment. So I definitely think there's going to be some changes to that.
And that's where I get the biggest argument against it, because they're like, it's going to hurt recruiting, but isn't going to hurt recruiting either way, because the guy has a relationship with the coach. Yeah, you cut it off early. If you cut it off late, I feel like that's worse for them to get flipped, right? Because you're like, hey, we fired your coach, but will you still sign with us next week?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you gotta try to like evaluate the new situation or whatever. Where if you cut clean house now and you're like, hey, where we bring in a new guy, Norvell reaches out and it's like, yeah, I really want you to come here, blah blah. And then unless they go crazy and fire Norvell.
Now the Norvell's not getting fired. Like for the pressure that FSU was under when they thought he was being poached by Bama. They threw a ridiculous extension at him. The amount of money that it would take to buy him out, you're not getting somebody else. And you're not, like, to do that and actually get rid of him. How much more money are you then going to have to spend to bring in a quality coach? Not like some derelict that's going to go in for $3. Like, to actually have a legitimate coach come in, he's going to need money for his assistants. He's going to need money for recruiting. So it's not just like, oh, we're going to rip this Band-Aid off and away we go. Like, no, there's a lot of money that's going to be need to be thrown. So at that point, like, they can't afford to have that wait. And honestly, I don't think that it's a sound decision anyhow to let him go. I think there's some position coaches, like when you look at Shannon, who's now the interim defensive coordinator, he hasn't developed anyone at the linebacker spot, and it's been an area of need. Ron Dugans was let go. We haven't had any. We had guys develop or get drafted recently, but I mean, as far as players that we've recruited and then brought in and developed, we've had nobody in I couldn't tell you how many years. I mean, it's probably been 15 years since they've developed somebody legitimate, and that's just unacceptable. They had Johnny Wilson, they had Keon Coleman, but they were transfers in, and God knows every time they were playing, the announcers had to make sure you knew that they were transfers. They weren't from Florida State. They were from other schools that came in.
Yeah, they did bring that up a lot. I was wondering, do you think that Dabo Swinney called that tip in? Like, hey, Alabama's interested in Norvell to try to screw you guys?
Well, honestly, I think the thing that screwed their continuity, and I've questioned this to myself, how much of Atkins' 2-year show cause and like his recruiting sanctions, he ended up missing some time early on. Like, how much of that messed with their continuity? Like, I think.
Was that from the Georgia thing?
Yeah.
Where they set him up?
Yeah. So, like, there was fallout from that, and it's not really being talked about, but I wonder, like, that has to be making an impact or having an impact.
Well, I would think any coaching change like that's going to have an impact. And that's where, with some of the new, like, analyst roles that they're getting rid of, I think the NCAA is getting rid of some of the number of, like, caps on coaches that can be coaching now. It's going to get ridiculous. Like, you're going to have so many coaches, like, bringing in. Because, like, what's to stop you from just hiring a bunch of high school coaches, right? To get guys to sign with you. That's cheaper than NIL. Because, like, some of these guys are making, like, what, $5,000 to coach high school? And they're like, yo, buddy, come be an analyst for us. We'll pay whatever you're making and $10,000 more. And they were probably like, we'll do it. I love football. Right? That could be your ticket. You need to bring in one top athlete and then go coach wherever they get recruited to. Right? That happens. Speaking of coaches, the other investigation into that Michigan thing, I hit it up pre-show, but Connor Stallions got brought up to the high school that one of the top quarterback recruits, Underwood, he's committed to LSU. His high school's in the playoffs, and Connor Stallions just randomly shows up being his offensive coordinator the same week that the NCAA admits that they're looking into Jim McElwain, that was Michigan's wide receivers coach after he got cut from Florida, the Shark. He might be the connection to get Stallions on the sideline. Now, he originally denied it. But like I said, you don't get official coaching gear randomly. Like, for a staffer to say, hey, like, to his buddy, come work with us. Like, hey, like, you give me a shirt? Like, no. Like, I give you the whole shebang. Like, because it wasn't, like, ill-fitting, right? Unless his buddy was, like, the same exact size as him and they wore the same stuff. And like, just wear one of mine, right? and McElwain was like, yeah, his name wasn't on the list. Like, we didn't know. But, like, you're not going to do a double take during the game? Like, yo, Stallions, what are you doing here? On the side, like, I feel like he has to, like, he worked with them for so long at Michigan, like, at least a year. I can't remember how many years he was at Michigan, but you're there for at least a year. You see the guy every day. You're going to remember him. It wasn't like he worked with them 10 years ago. It was only a couple years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and that goes back to the investigation thing. Like, is it illegal? We talked about filming on an iPhone. Is that illegal? Like, if I went in and filmed it, not really. I could try to sell it. It will piss a lot of coaches off. But if you're on the sideline of another coach, then that's a gray area. And just like if Stallions starts to go in and coach a high school player that might commit to Michigan, and he's like recruiting him to Michigan randomly, is that against the rules? No. Very Connor Stallions like move to get that job, right? Still, still doing the Lord's work out there, bringing Michigan back to the top, setting up for John Harbaugh to come down as our next coach. Because I've been waiting for Michigan to fire coaches. You talk about Florida State firing coaches. Kirk Campbell, Michigan's offensive coordinator, should have been fired weeks ago. It's so frustrating that it's very telling. I said that this could have been like, or appears to be almost like a Luke Fickell year at Ohio State where they named him the interim. And it was very clear he was not ready to lead a program. And I know Sharon Moore's young. A lot of young coaches are head coaches now. He just doesn't have the in-game. Like, he looks like a deer in headlights. They made a stop. Or no, they turned the ball over, and they had a chance to stop them to get one more chance. And he had 3 timeouts. He let like 30 seconds run off the clock before even calling the timeout after the first down run. And it's like, at that point, dude, save it for the next play, right? Like, you already blew 30 seconds or whatever it was, 20. Like, the ball's going to be snapped in like 5 more seconds. Why are you calling the timeout? And there were a couple other bonehead plays like that you're just head scratching, and it's like, this guy he can't be learning on the job at Michigan. Like, it's embarrassing.
But I felt like he had a head start because of how many sanctions and allegations and all kinds of random stuff Harbaugh went through, that it was almost like he had a great template and start to everything.
Well, he had the talent this year. And no one can argue against the talent. Michigan, I mean, Indiana's not loaded with talent, right? They're ranked number 8 in the country. They're number 5 right now. Michigan played them. Michigan should have won that game. Like, their defense took over, and you could easily tell. Everyone talking trash on Wink Martindale, the pressure needs to be put on the head coach. And I know that why they don't want to do it. If they scapegoat Wink Martindale instead of the offensive guys, it'll be a disaster. Like, I'll have to start petitioning, dude. Because that will be ridiculous if it seems like there's a lot of push to make changes on defense. Defense isn't losing the games. Defense had a turnover. Michigan had drives from the 6-yard line and the 7-yard line or something like that. And they got field goals each time. And lost by like 5 or whatever it was. They get 1 touchdown there, and they don't have to go over 2. It's a tie game. They convert both of those on a team that you're bigger than them. And he's not even playing the best guys. Like, he didn't play Mullings. Ever since that one game where he looked like he was the best running back in the Big Ten, he hasn't played him. And he said, well, he hasn't been practicing well. Dude, he was on punt team. You can't tell me that that's not a deliberate move. Either it's a personnel issue. I don't know if it's for promises to other recruits or whatever. There's no way Mullings in the game is the best guy. And then magically he's practicing bad and the whole entire offense just stinks. Like, it doesn't make any sense. They're not running the ball. They passed. Against Indiana, dude, the entire time they beat USC, they ran the ball. It was a miracle that they won because they were running the ball so much. And then against Indiana, they threw it 65% of the time. It made no sense. Like, the game plan makes no sense. They still almost won in spite of the offense. And it's kind of like how they won with Will Johnson making pick sixes early in the year. And then he's not even playing. He's like on a Christian McCaffrey mode where he's injured every week. And it's like, he's not coming back. He might as well just say, like, yo, I'm pulling the Bosa, I'm sitting out. Because I know Michigan fans made fun of Bosa, and like they had another guy, I forget which one of the receivers sat out. But he's doing the same thing. And then they have him like doing NIL appearances, like, oh yeah, he's good for that. But if you don't want to play, then don't play. Like, why are you there? And the coach isn't going to help, and bringing in a great recruiting class isn't going to help, because the guys aren't getting developed. And the offensive coordinator sucks so bad that they need to just almost clean house and bring in guys with experience. That's the one thing that Michigan basketball, for Juwan Howard, as bad as it turned out, he brought in coaches with experience to be on his staff, and he was kind of turning it over for them because there was a joke like Phil Martelli might have been coaching a lot of the games. That's what Sharon Moore needs. is some guys, whether it's Wink Martindale, and I'm starting to feel like Wink, everyone's making fun of him for taking chances and blitzing all these guys on third down. I'm starting to think he's doing it on purpose because he knows the offense sucks. Then he's like, well, at least we have a chance to get a turnover and we might score. Like the defense at some of these games are the only chance for Michigan to win the game. It's like almost Iowa-like. If the Michigan doesn't get 15 points like the last couple games, they're going to finish worse than Iowa under Brian Ferentz.
Wow.
That's how bad the offense is right now. It's not even a joke. I don't know if that's counting defense. That was a stat I saw where they have to hit at least 15 points like these last two games, and maybe a bowl game if they have that. But they have Northwestern, which is like top 30 in defense, and then they have Ohio State, which, let's be honest, if Michigan scores in Ohio State, it'll be a miracle. This might be the year Ryan Day runs up 100, but I have a feeling he's not going to do that because he wants Sharon Moore to keep coaching there. I don't know what Michigan does. And that's why Brian Kelly got killed by Alabama. And I keep going back to, if Brian Kelly was interested, a lot of other top coaches were interested in that gig. You can't tell me when the time is. I'm not saying that Brian Kelly would have been a great fit at Michigan or that I wanted him, but a lot of great coaches would have wanted that job. And I get that Sharon Moore might have earned it. I'm almost wondering now if they're going to use the NCAA Connor Stein's thing as a scapegoat, because you said he was there for all that drama and he already has a show cause or whatever on him. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan just takes a punishment and fires Sharon Moore for his connection to it. Keeps the national championship because like there's no connection to Jim, but they try to say like, oh, it was Sharon Moore all along, like the Scooby-Doo. They pull the mask. It's like, it wasn't Harbaugh, it was Sharon Moore. He got to get fired now. That's a bummer. Too bad he only won 5 games. Like, Michigan's at risk to be not eligible for a bowl game with a team that was one of the top 10 or 12 talented teams in the country. And that's a shame. Quarterback, blame it on the quarterback. People keep saying, well, Harbaugh did bad when they had John O'Korn at quarterback. It's like, yeah, but they still finished bowl eligible, and they almost beat Ohio State if he didn't throw that last pick. There's no way. If Sharon Moore beats Ohio State, then yeah, give him another year. It was almost a miracle that he's won every rivalry game so far. I don't know how he's been doing it. Like, if he beats Ohio State, it'll be such a head scratcher. And people are already speculating that maybe Ohio State will blow it to keep him as head coach. Because if there's a scenario where, depending on how things work out, Ohio State could lose to Michigan and still make the Big Ten championship game, and then it won't matter. Or they could lose and make the playoffs and get a home game. Because if they lose to Michigan, then they don't have to play in the Big Ten championship game. I forget what the math was. But then people were saying, like, what if they lose to Michigan on purpose to keep Sharon Moore at Michigan? And then they make the playoffs anyway and they get a bye. Like, they don't have to play in the Big Ten championship game. That'd be some big brain thinking. I don't know if their fans could deal with that, though. Because there's rumors now that some teams are going to start benching their guys for the championship game. Do you think that's going to be an issue? Or even rivalry week, too, like I mentioned.
I think it might, but...
Because Florida State's the case in point, right? Jordan Travis gets hurt, they're done. If your team that's floating around, like let's say Oregon right now, you're number one, you have a quarterback that's killing it, you're clinched. Does he need to play in the Big Ten championship game? Actually, does he even need to play against Washington or whatever their rivalry game week is? That he could just sit that game, play in the Big Ten championship game, and then the playoffs. Right? If they clinch the Big Ten championship spot, what's it matter?
Yeah.
They're going to get the bye. They're going to probably be ranked. Actually, being ranked number 1 doesn't matter anyway, because they're all neutral site games, right? Take the loss. And actually, you might win. Like Texas, like, oh, they bench Quinn Ewers or they put Arch Manning in. Like, is that really a matter? Some of the other guys you might want to have sit out just to rest, but I'm wondering if we might not see it this first year because there's a lot of people complaining. Actually, not really complaining. But I do think it's funny right now that the Big Ten has 4 of the top 5 teams. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and then Indiana. And then the only other undefeated team, BYU, baby. Did you see their complaint?
No.
Oh, actually, Army is undefeated. I don't want to forget them. They have to play Notre Dame, though, don't they? So BYU beat Utah. There were 2 controversial plays at the end. I went back and watched them because I was confused. Or I wasn't really confused. I wanted to see what the outrage was about. Right, the first one, coach got a timeout before the play got off, and it was I don't know. I can't remember if it was like the incomplete pass or what. Or the sack, right? And so they call timeout, they get another chance at it. Then it's 4th and 1, and he gets sacked, I think. But they call defensive holding, and the Utah athletic director just went insane.
Oh, that is... Yeah, I saw he went ballistic, and I didn't realize that was the call that
he was insinuating that the Big 12 put a hand in because he wanted BYU to be undefeated, right? He's saying like, yeah, you know what? It's better for us if Utah loses because they're like whatever 4-4, whatever they were, and then BYU's undefeated. They're 9-0 now. They play Kansas, Arizona State, and Houston. Very clear chance for them to be undefeated at the end of the regular season. And what he's insinuating is BYU goes undefeated, right? They're ranked 6th. Colorado has a chance to be their opponent. They're ranked 17th right now. They're 7-2. If Colorado and BYU both win out, Colorado upsets BYU for the Big 12 championship game, there's a good chance that BYU gets in and then the Big 12 gets 2 teams in. Because they're the only team that has another team that's ranked that high. Right? Unless they're going to say, well, BYU, sorry, you got to go all the way out. And meanwhile, we're going to shove in a whatever 1-loss Notre Dame. Because, that's what I'm waiting to see. Notre Dame's schedule's god-awful. They lost to Northern Illinois. How are they going to keep Notre Dame above a BYU if BYU lost to the Big 12 champ Colorado and went undefeated in the regular season? So they would have one more win. Notre Dame doesn't even have a Big 10 championship game or a Big 12 championship game or whatever. Their best win might be Louisville, A&M. But with A&M losing, does it really matter? Because A&M's kind of playing their way out now in the SEC. They had a chance where if they would have been able to keep going. Actually, they still might be up there. Hold on a second. Maybe I'm thinking of a different team. Because SEC right now, they're fighting over it because they have Texas A&M and Tennessee right now and Texas all tied. A&M plays Texas at the end of the year. There's a good chance that we get a Tennessee-Texas SEC championship game if Tennessee can beat, as I think it's Georgia this week. And Georgia just lost to Ole Miss. So Tennessee plays Georgia and Vanderbilt. I don't think they're losing to Vanderbilt. Although I didn't think Bama was losing to them, so who knows? If they beat Georgia, though, Georgia gets 3 losses. And then you have a disaster of teams with 2 losses because the SEC is only playing 8 games. That's the one thing that I think they're going to have to reevaluate. So there's other controversy too. I don't know if you saw this, where people have been petitioning against Fox to move the best Big Ten games tonight. Did you see that?
Yeah, because Ohio State's playing all big noon games.
Yeah, welcome to Michigan's world. Actually, I loved it. I think Joel Klatt said Michigan played in 18 of those games the last 3 years. And it's nice. Your team goes out, they get an early win, they bring in great ratings, they win the national championship. That's awesome. Ohio State doesn't like it because they're losing to Oregon. They're not winning the national championship, Matt. They're not winning the Big Ten. So now they just look like, what? The big embarrassment at noon? I don't know why they're upset. Would it be better if they played at night? Because the argument that they're making is our games would be more exciting at night. No one's watching your games at night because they're not exciting. Would you rather give Penn State a bump and take another loss and then be eliminated from the Big Ten championship game? I don't know what they're complaining about. Are they complaining that their games aren't interesting anymore because of that? Like, remember when they lost to Purdue under the lights? Didn't Iowa crush them that one year? Was it under the lights? Is that what they want more of? Like, I don't understand. Like, they're upset that they beat Penn State by 7 because it was during the day? Did they want it to be a whiteout game? They might have lost to them this year. Like, why? Yeah, they picked you for the noon. Michigan's always at noon against them, and it's always the best rated game of the year. So people talking about, like, well, the SEC has great games at night. Do they? We watched LSU get slaughtered last week. Was that a top game? Like, was that thrilling? No? Yeah, would I rather watch Purdue get thrashed by Ohio State 45-0 at night? Like, the big noon game is going to be the best Big Ten team every year. Last 3 years, it was Michigan. This year, they've been picking Ohio State. Maybe they should be picking Oregon. But Oregon doesn't draw like Ohio State or Michigan. I feel like Fox bought it because they want to play Ohio State or Michigan games. The only thing the Big Ten can do to fix it is to fix their unbalanced schedule that favors Ohio State. Like that's the big thing. They don't play USC. They don't play, like, Michigan has to play all the top teams that have been brought in. They played USC, they play Washington, they played Oregon. Ohio State has to play Oregon. That's it. But, oh, yeah, let's keep giving them Northwestern and Purdue and Indiana, like all those classic big noon matchups that they're complaining about. Like, you don't think Ohio State's AD has some sway in what schedule they're getting? Complain about the schedule. Don't complain about the game being picked. Because then CBS or whatever, NBC is going to put a couple games on at night. And then you have better matchups. Like, Ohio State only plays... They only have, 3 ranked games now this year? Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana? All top 5 matchups as of right now. I mean, let's be honest. That Indiana team's fool's gold. Michigan should have beat them if they had any offense. I think Ohio State's going to crush them. So,
I haven't overly watched Ohio State this year, but I just feel like I was fully anticipating a different style to their offense, and I don't know if that's Ryan Day kind of handcuffing Chip Kelly, but I kind of just thought there was going to be more to his offense.
What do you think? It's weird that Oregon, and no matter what coach they bring in, they always run that same style of offense now, it seems, for 12 years. Like, they don't miss a beat. They're like almost Wisconsin until Luke Fickell got there and blew it up. And I wonder, who's actually in charge of putting that scheme together that's there? Because you're right. I thought the same thing. I thought, man, there's no way that their offense is going to kind of look the same as what it's been under Ryan Day. But it has been. Right? So yeah. I'm not very impressed. And yeah, they've been blowing teams like Purdue out. They lost to Oregon. They very well should have lost to Nebraska. And they could have lost to Penn State. Penn State had the same thing that Michigan had. Getting the 10-yard line, and then you can't score because of awful play calling. And then what? I don't even know who I would pick for a national championship. This year it's kind of thrown up in the air. If you're a fan of a team that's been kicking around like a Tennessee, I joked that Michigan won the national championship in 97 and then Tennessee won it, 98? It's their turn? It could be their turn. Because no one's jumping up and grabbing it. That's why the Big 12's probably are pressing that panic button. Saying, bro, let's get BYU undefeated. It wouldn't even be, I wouldn't be shocked if Colorado continues winning and coming together and they made the Final Four. Everyone else would be having their minds blown. But if you have playmakers, you don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs. You get a home game because you win I guess you win the Big 12, you automatically go to the Elite 8. So what? Win one game, you're in the Final Four. I wouldn't put it past Colorado, because like some of the teams, Notre Dame, like yeah, if they get blessed with the home game with that week's schedule, that I could see the SEC being mad about that. But that's the new system that they drew up. You're playing only 8-game schedules and your teams are losing to each other. What did you expect? Like I complain about Ohio State's schedule, but in the Big 12 or the Big 10, there's not that many mid-range teams that are decent. The big dogs, Michigan, Ohio State, they normally can just out-talent them. Like even this year, Michigan should have out-talented Indiana. They almost did, because Indiana's offense couldn't do anything against the defense. That's my only thing with Ohio State. Ohio State's defense looks good this year. If Indiana couldn't move the ball at the end against Michigan's offense, I think they were like -1 going into the fourth quarter yards in the second half. Ohio State does the same thing, and they're going to kill them because their offense is halfway decent.
Well, I just thought, like, Ohio State has recruited and been pulling for such a long time that it's like, you would think with Chip Kelly's style, like, it almost reminds me, and again, maybe I need to just, like, watch more of their film, but, like, I feel like it resembles a lot to me what he was trying to do with the Eagles.
And maybe you're right. I mean, I haven't watched all of their games, but I've seen a lot of the same Ryan Day concepts, a lot of screens, things in the flat, crossing routes, not really letting your guys go deep. They did take some shots to that freshman, Smith.
Yeah.
The quarterback's not really accurate deep though. It's nowhere near like Haskins or Stroud. So I wonder like if there's such a drop off that's kind of limiting them to those like smaller routes. They really don't have a power run game though, and I feel like they could. So that's kind of weird. I just don't know. Like it's almost like they don't have an identity. And that's kind of where it hurts them against like Oregon. And I know there are a lot of things that went wrong in that game, and they could have beat Oregon. But I don't know. I'm just not impressed with their guy. Like he beat Penn State. Their quarterback was like, "Yeah, I wanted to go to Penn State." Blah blah blah. They didn't want me, and he had to improve it to him. And at the end of the game, I wasn't like, "Oh, he really proved it to him." I didn't think that at all. Like, so I didn't. I don't know what. It's kind of their defense is keeping them in games. It could happen. It's good, but if you're looking at the top teams in the playoffs, like they catch an Ole Miss or like even an Alabama with their offense starting to click, they're not going to stop them. I don't think. I don't think their defense is overpowering as what Michigan had last year to stop Milroe. Michigan had so many pressures on Milroe early in that game. Like Alabama had no idea. They couldn't block Michigan's defensive line. That's why I think this year is so frustrating. That defensive line came back. And the offense is so bad, you're blowing a once-in-a-lifetime defensive line and not even making a bowl game. The game that blew Bama offensive line away so bad that Nick Saban retired after that game. So Ohio State doesn't have that power. They used to have some of it. Like Bosa was there. Chase Young was there. They just don't seem like they have that power on the defensive line this year. And so I think teams that have decent offenses like Ole Miss, Alabama, maybe even Tennessee, they're going to give them trouble in the playoffs. Georgia, their quarterback just keeps throwing interceptions. I don't know what the heck he's doing. That's honestly, Michigan's offense should be Michigan should be having the year Georgia's having. The quarterback just throwing interceptions all the time, but their defense is good enough that they're 7-2. And you're kind of like, man, if that guy just stops throwing picks, they could be the SEC champs. That's where I'm at with it. But we'll see. We got a couple games coming up. Boise's going to be a big one. I keep talking about SMU. The ACC doesn't want SMU to win the ACC this year. I'm telling you. They don't want them to start kicking that NIL into high gear. Because NIL is already causing issues, right? Michigan's having rumors of firing it up, getting all kind of guys in on it. Is it all fool's gold? Or are these guys lying? Is it going to get to the point where they get on campus and then they're not paid like other campuses? USC is under investigation for coaches improperly coaching. Sounds very Harbaugh-like. Is the NCAA just going after USC? Is it an inside coup, Matt? Are they trying to get rid of Lincoln Riley? Right?
It's plausible.
Because, like, why would they be investigating USC? They're not good this year. Clemson is right there. They're down lower. And that's the difference right now. Where, like, if Clemson wins the ACC, the way the polls are setting it up, the ACC is getting one team in. There's no way they're getting two in. BYU is in the position where, BYU's in the position right now being undefeated where if the Big 12 gets Colorado in, you could see two Big 12 teams in and only one ACC team. And I think that would be such a strange shock based on just, 2 weeks ago when they had Pitt undefeated and then they lost 2 games. Clemson was only there with 1 loss and Miami was undefeated and SMU was there with their 1 loss. Now they only have 2 teams with 1 loss left, Miami and SMU. They don't play each other, right? And they don't play Clemson. Clemson has to play Pitt, so that will eliminate most likely Pitt. Although it is at Heinz Field. A nooner on ESPN. So, and that's Clemson's last ACC game. So if they win it, I would say that they're in it, but I don't know how the tiebreakers work, right? Does it go to Miami? They're going to have a 3-way tie. Or no, it would be a 2-way tie. Yeah, who would get it? It would either be Miami or Clemson. SMU would be undefeated if they went out.
Well, they'll just go to Clemson because Clemson has the closest national championship.
That would be funny if they said that. Like, we got to roll with our boys. That's kind of what I feel like the Big Ten has been doing with Ohio State for a while. Where they're like, yeah, gotta keep going with the team that has the talent to win it all. And then Michigan won it, and they're kind of like in denial. And now with Oregon there, they can't do that. And so I feel like Ohio State fans are going to start feeling a cold reality now. Where if they lose to Michigan 3 years in a row, they lose to Oregon, the last 2 times they played them? What's going to happen to their psyche if they lose the Big Ten championship to Oregon again? Right? Or heck, if they lose to Michigan this year and then they get bounced in the first round of the playoffs, Ryan Day is probably going to get fired, right? I don't know how you wouldn't win the Big Ten. Oregon comes and win it right away. 4 years in a row to Michigan, that's fireable, I would think. You're not in the national championship game if you get bounced in the first round to like Tennessee or something. I think heads would roll. And then when Ohio State brings in a new coach that blows everything up, and then Michigan's struggling with Sherrone Moore year 2, and we're sitting there, our game after Thanksgiving will be like a 7-5 and 7-5 matchup. And Oregon's going for their second national championship. I'll be like, damn it, what the hell? What'd you guys do, Ohio State? You blew everything up. You let Oregon take over the conference in 1 year. That's my nightmare. You have anything else you want to talk about?
No.
All right. Thanks for listening. Let me know what games you're looking forward to and what teams you'd like to see make the playoffs. That's what I want to see. I would like to see BYU and Colorado both make it. I'd like to see SMU in there. I don't want to see Ohio State in there. I'd rather them lose to Indiana. If Ohio State lost to Indiana and then Michigan to end the year, I think they'd fire him immediately. Because they would I think they'd miss the playoffs. Maybe I'd be wrong. But that would be the funniest outcome. Beat Northwestern, lose to Indiana, and lose to Michigan. Ryan Day gets fired. Michigan somehow makes a bowl game, which would be embarrassing. But let me know what teams you would like to see. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.